Thank you, Rohan, and it's great to be here and represent the SAMDB today to talk a little bit about, I guess, NRM driving regional adaptation planning from at least the perspective of the NRM board. I guess it's really wanting to talk about the emerging model that we've got in the SAMDB. We're working with some regional partners, and it's worth acknowledging those. Certainly the Regional Development Australia is involved. It's good to see Brent Lewis here today. The other partners we've got are Emergency Management, SAPOL, as well as JUNA represented, and the local government regionally. So it's a model that's very similar to the model on Peninsula as it happens, that although we don't have a sector agreement signed at the moment, the model seems to capture a lot of the planning organisations in the region. Our region is quite diverse. I suppose it's got one major feature, and it's a big river that runs through the middle of it and tends to get a lot of focus. But we also have the rangelands, the eastern Mount Lofties, the Mallee, and our very valuable Coorong and Lower Lakes. And I guess that offers us opportunities for a focus for the region, but probably sometimes takes away from some of the other problems that we get in other regions because we've got the river that's a pretty major focus. But it's certainly, the river is valued both socially, environmentally and economically. Other things that are worth mentioning is that environmental issues are often raised, and that resources are subject to the complex negotiations such as the Basin plan. Some of the key regional adaptation documents is the NRM plan, which was put together once the initial integration happened in 2009, and the board was quite visionary in involving or incorporating in that plan some, thank you, you noticed. I tried the Mentos, that seemed to work for a while. Then you've got to wash it down. So in 2009, they built in, we regionally decided to put in mitigation adaptation in the form of a atmosphere program. And that's been going along quite well, and is really sort of morphing into our actions with adaptation. We were successful in getting some funding to do phase 1 of an integrated vulnerability assessment. And that work is now underway and has been virtually completed, and we've got a gap identification report. So we're using the guidelines that were developed by the Local Government Association in developing an integrated vulnerability assessment as part of a process that you go through to then develop a regional adaptation plan. I guess one of the differences with our region is because it is so special, or at least has such a high focus, then there's been a lot of studies. And if you look at the work that's been mentioned earlier, the work of Wayne Meyer, the Environment Institute at Adelaide Uni, and many other institutions that are involved with research, we thought that the integrated vulnerability assessment was really about collating a lot of the information rather than going out and having to reinvent the wheel. So that's exactly what we've done. We've seen it at this stage as collating all of that information that was there, and some of the projects are mentioned there on the list. The 11 councils strengthening basin communities was an excellent one in galvanising support and having a local direction. The adapted landscape futures, Lower Murray landscape futures, and the climate change communities and environment projects have all contributed. And this is just a snippet. There's plenty of other stuff that we've managed to be able to collate in the first stage. So what do NRM bodies bring to the table in this whole process? In some regions, NRM bodies have a lesser role. I guess because of our movement in 2009 to be actively at the table with this, we've tended to be one of the drivers in applying for applications for funding, and we have been successful in receiving funding for phase 2 of our integrated vulnerability assessment, which should take us all the way through to a regional adaptation plan. And the core funding, although there's been some regional partners that have chipped in as well, it comes from the Natural Disaster Resilience Fund. Okay. So what do we bring to the table? Well, I guess if you think of NRM in general, we've probably been through the perfect storm. 90% of the vegetation in some cases in South Australia was cleared, species lost, etc. So in a way, NRM is one body that has kind of started at a very low base, and we've had to adapt and really restore a lot of the stuff that's been there. So I guess we know about situations where you've had a pretty well a major wipeout of a lot of the stuff that you tended to value or wanted to keep. Certainly, we have a general acceptance that environmental impacts also impact on the triple bottom line. And I mean, with any successful adaptation plan, you really do have to have triple bottom line people at the table. And our region has been trying to foster that and working with it over time. I think NRM, you understand the capacity from within a system to adapt to the impacts, so that's about that ecosystem values. But being a team player and ending up with an agreed reference point for regional planning has got to be beneficial and actually stop things like maladaptation, which hasn't been talked about a lot today, but I think we'll hear a lot more about it as adaptation actions from one sector start to kick in and perhaps impact on another one. And that can be controlled through policy and just sensible getting around the table and coming up with some decisions that are actually not working over the top of each other. And I guess just to finalise, what we plan to do in the region is to complete the IVA. There's a few more steps there to complete the regional adaptation plan, but then to merge project activities so that we've got a legacy into the future. We want to develop a comprehensive communication and engagement plan, and the board is most interested in involving people at a grassroots level, so at that level, and then actually having them involved in the process, and develop a suitable regional sector agreement with regional partners. And what that model might look like, we don't know yet, and how transferable it will be to another region is another question, but certainly I think each region has to work out for itself and come up with an answer and a delivery mechanism that's going to work for them. Thank you.